Hey, loves. I'm super excited about this episode and the episodes to come simply because a lot of what Ruach HaKodesh has me talking about is practicality. We can sit and think of all the knowledge that we've attained over the course of our life, but for many of us, we just don't know how to practically apply those things to our lives. And please understand, this is not me telling you what to do or what to think. This is just me giving suggestions, and whether you do them or not is completely up to you. But I would say try it. Why not try it to see what it produces? And one thing that I've heard over the course of my life is in order to form a habit, you have to consistently do it for at least 21 days consecutively. And usually by the time you reach the 22nd, 23rd, and so on, it's become kind of like a secondhand nature for you. So why not just give it a try and see how it impacts your life? And the first thing that I'm going to discuss is failures. We live in a society where we are constantly being told that we have to uphold this level of perfection that sometimes is just so unattainable that it sends so many people into a place of stress and anxiety and depression, and unfortunately sometimes suicide. So let's talk about some things in regards to failure that kind of will change our perspective on our failures and ultimately ourselves in general. All right, let's get into it. For a lot of us, when we think of the word failure, we think of everything negative. There's nothing positive that our brain attributes to the word failure. As a matter of fact, Merriam-Webster defines failure as an omission of occurrence or performance, a state of inability to perform a normal function, an abrupt cessation of normal functioning, a fracturing or giving way under stress, a lack of success, a failing in business, a falling short, or one that has failed. However, I want to ask, to what are we measuring our success? Because unless it's Yahweh, Yeshua, Ruach HaKodesh, unless that is the standard, any other standard is already imperfect in and of itself. So when we measure our success to something that's imperfect, it really doesn't make sense at all. As a matter of fact, it's a little silly, but it's something that's been ingrained in us since we came out of the womb. For instance, little girls. I'm going to speak about little girls because I'm a female, so I can't speak from the men's perspective. So fellas, if you have anything to say in regards to this, as far as your, men are concerned, then by all means, I will give the email address to the ministry at the end of this episode, and I would love to hear your take on this. But from the time we were little girls, when it comes to like Disney movies, we've been taught that we are princesses and we are supposed to be rescued by some prince, whether it be Prince Charming or, whomever. And we are presented with these superficial ideologies. And it doesn't just stop there. I mean, even when we hit adolescence and then our teen years and then young adulthood, everywhere you look, there is a level of perfection that's really superficial at its core. Have you guys ever watched like a television show and let's say the main character is supposed to be this poor, struggling, whomever, but yet when you're watching the show, they live in their own apartment. They never have any of their amenities or their utilities cut off. They don't really seem to be struggling and be poor. Like they're always going out with their friends. They always have money to go on vacation. Like you never really see them at work, but somehow they are paying bills and stuff. And yeah, I get it. You know, it's a false reality and it's meant to focus on certain aspects of the character's life. So maybe showing them at work doesn't pertain to the story. I get that. But what I'm talking about is this subconscious influences this type of false reality has on us, because we can be in the same situation that is portrayed in this character's life, but because our situation doesn't look the same as their situation, and even though they're a fictional character, somehow we're still we're still measuring our life to their lives. And so now we have this level of depression. Well, you know, why are my bills getting behind, and are my lights getting cut off, and why is it hard for me to pay my rent, and why can I go out with my friends? And this is all coming because you watched a television show and subconsciously you took in their life, which is supposed to be the same as your life, but your life doesn't measure up to what you're seeing on the television. So now you feel like you have failed. The same concept applies to social media. When we look at people's social media posts, we are seeing a mask. We are literally seeing what that person wants us to see. For instance, when you see pictures that someone posts on social media, and please understand, I've been guilty of this as well, that person didn't just take those pictures and then post them. There were several pictures that were taken, but the ones that got selected were the ones that that were the most flattering when it came to their appearances or even their lifestyle. Nobody really posts those pictures that makes them look like they have 5 chins or they're 7 months pregnant when you know they're not even pregnant. Like nobody posts those pictures. And why? Because subconsciously we have a need to feel accepted, and rejection just isn't an option. So there's a fear of rejection instilled in all of us from birth. Now, I do understand that there are plenty of people out there that either never had, this fear never stuck with them, or they learned how to overcome it. So these are usually the ones that we look at them and they seem to be rebels, just rebels of society. And it's not that they're rebels per se. It's just that they have learned that the standards that we have in society as a whole are highly unrealistic, especially if you try to apply them to everyone. Some standards are just not applicable to every single person. It's highly delusional to think that you can apply every standard to every person, because every person is different, every situation is different, so on and so forth. So when I stopped looking at my failures as me being less than and started looking at them as an invitation for me to discover exactly what I was made of, I learned that I am actually a highly creative person. The reason why I'm surrounded by highly creative people is because I am, in fact, a highly creative person. And my whole outlook on life has changed. For one, letting go of the fear of rejection and the need to feel accepted by others has caused me to have more peace in general in my everyday life, because I'm no longer struggling to hold up a mask that society tells us we have to hold firmly in place in front of us in order for people to feel good about us. I don't care how people feel about me, because I know now that if I'm being genuine and I'm being authentic and I'm being me, that however you feel about me It's just how you feel about me. It doesn't make that who I am. And the thing about that is, I'm okay if your feelings towards me don't align with my feelings towards me, because my feelings towards me are the only ones that matter outside of Yahweh. So I let it go, and I realize I have more peace, but I also have more joy. One of the things that viewing your failure as beautiful can do is show you how creative you are. Even those people that are already creative, you'll be surprised at how much more creative you can be, because all of us are still kind of holding on to this need for acceptance and fear of rejection. But that's neither here nor there. But it also helps develop a strategic mindset in you. So one of the problems that I had previously was when I would try to achieve something and I would fail at it, I would give up because I couldn't see any other way to attempt to tackle this goal. But now that I don't see my failure as me being less than, but I see it as an invitation for me to step up to the plate and to explore me, explore my mind, explore my personality, explore my talents and my gifts. Now I have been able to strategically approach the same task from multiple angles. And again, I know that there's people out there that are like, well, I already know how to do all that. That's fine. Hallelujah. Please let someone else listen to this podcast. Send it to someone that you see struggling, because someone out there needs to hear this. Someone out there needs to hear this. And the thing about it was, I never saw myself as being someone that thought this way. I just knew that, I would fail and other people would succeed. So maybe that just wasn't what I was meant to do with my life. So I would bounce around from this, that, and the other. But then after a while, when you start realizing that you're still failing, it starts to make you depressed and anxious, and you're stressed out. And in some cases, you have suicidal thoughts. And unfortunately, some people follow through with those thoughts. And let's go back to this whole social media thing. Because again, like I said, most people only allow you to see the side of them that they want you to see on social media. But again, just like with a television show, this creates a false reality in our minds. And now we find ourselves subconsciously comparing ourselves, our lives, to that person. And here's the thing. Within the past year or two, a lot of social media influencers have started to be called out because they have actually been photoshopping themselves into pictures of places in other countries. So they're not even actually going to these countries. And then you can find online on YouTube and whatnot, all of these photo hacks. You can make your photos look like, look more extravagant than they actually are. You know what I'm saying? And it's all to give the appearance of perfection. But in reality, the perfection is literally relative. It's literally relative. It's not concrete. But yet so many of us take the bait, and it causes it causes a lot of psychological damage to us, to the point where some of us we're in this funk, this depression, because we don't measure up to someone else that is just as imperfect as we are. So I encourage you to start looking at your failures as beautiful. You are a beautiful failure. I'm a beautiful failure. And start using your failure as an invitation to explore yourself, to go before Yahweh. Because that's actually how I wound up doing it. I started handing those anxious and stressful and depressive feelings that I was having, thoughts and feelings I was having, I started talking to Yahweh about them and asking Him to take them from me and replace them with His perspective. And, my prayer was for Him to align my mind with His mind, align my eyes with His eyes, align my ears with His ears, so on and so forth. And I would pray it here and there, not consistently, but here and there. And then slowly but surely, I noticed that I started to see things different, started to feel different about certain situations that I normally would be anxious or depressed or stressed out in. I started to feel different about them. And be prepared, because when you start praying things like this, understand that He is going to put you in situations that causes you to have to see things different. He doesn't just take it away from you. He instills the new perspective in you. He doesn't just place it in you, just place it in you. He cultivates it in you. That's the word I was looking for. So He cultivates this new perspective in you by allowing situations to come into your life that will force you to start looking at things differently. It's a choice. You have to make that choice. And I made the choice, and I'm going to tell you, it was the best decision that I have made outside of giving my life to Yeshua HaMashiach. So, yeah, you are a beautiful failure. Fellas, please, I would love to hear about the different things that were instilled in you or subconsciously instilled in you since childhood that you all struggle with, because I know it's not the same all around for men and women. There are some things that can be interchangeable, but there are some things that are instilled in the woman and some things that are instilled in the men, and they're not the same. So if you could email me at replenishme@gmail.com, that's RIPLENISH me@gmail.com. And I would love to hear, some of the things that you guys had to go through as children, boys, young men, and now adult men. Because it doesn't stop, you guys. It only stops when you stop feeding into it. And let me just tell you something. Even Yahweh's definition of perfection is not the world's definition of perfection. Yahweh doesn't view what you do as you being perfect or righteous, I should say. He views what's in your heart. So for Him, He's not necessarily paying attention to what you do, because let's just face it, there are people that have learned how to perfect their actions. They've learned how to perfect the act of appearing to be a certain type of way. I mean, Yeshua even tells us that there will be false prophets that come to us looking and acting like sheep, but inwardly they are ravenous wolves. And those same people are going to come to Him in the end and say, but I cast out demons, I healed the sick, all in your name. And He's going to tell them, get away from me, I never knew you, you workers of iniquity. And what He is telling us in that instance is, it's not necessarily your actions that He's looking at, but He's looking at what's in your heart. And I have noticed that in this transition, because I'm transitioning into a new season, and I noticed that I now have a strong aversion to superficial relationships and even small talk. I am uninterested in having small talk conversations with people, and I'm uninterested in surface level relationships, whether it be platonic or romantic relationships. I am looking for organic situations and relationships, because when you meet people and engage with people organically, you get to see their authentic self, not the mask that they put on because they have a fear of rejection and a need to be accepted, like most of us have. But you see who they are without the mask. And so you have a better chance of forming a lasting bond connection with that person, because you met the real them, not the false them. And The other thing about this, and then I'm going to go, the other beautiful thing about learning to view your failures as beautiful is, when you've been in a relationship with someone for an extended period of time, again, whether it be a platonic relationship or a romantic relationship, you have to constantly spend time with that person, because as humans, we are constantly changing. As a little girl, my favorite colors were purple and pink. Then for a long time, my favorite color was red, and now my favorite color has changed again. But those in my life will never know what my favorite color is if they're not constantly spending time with me, and vice versa, you know? So if that's true, if we're constantly changing to the point where we have to spend time with the people in our lives in order to keep up with their evolution, that also means that you yourself are constantly changing. So in order to keep up with who you are, you need to develop a certain level of introspection. Take a look at who you really are. What motivates you? What deters you? What infuriates you? What brings you joy? Different things like that. Start looking at who you are, because when you start noticing changes in yourself, then that can alert you to different psychological issues, or maybe not issues, but maybe elevations. You know, if you start to notice, like for instance, going back to the fact that I no longer want anything superficial or small talk, I only want organic. Well, there's something that changed in me that caused this to happen. And it wasn't a bad thing, it was a good thing that changed in me. But here's the thing, if I wasn't constantly exercising an introspective mentality over myself, then I would be frustrated in those relationships that were superficial, because this is a person I've been friends with, or this is a person I'm in a relationship with. So why is it all of a sudden I'm no longer interested in this? But because I'm looking at myself and I'm introspecting myself, I understand that it's because this particular relationship is superficial and it just is off-putting to me. It's not organic, and that's what I'm craving, is that organic connection. So now I don't have to be mad at this person or feel like they did something to me. Now I can just let that person go and live their life without there being any bad blood between us. Even if I don't, tell you why I kind of distanced myself, I just know that when I did, I'm allowing you to be who you are, but I'm going to go be who I am. And there's no bad blood. It's just life. That's how people outgrow other people, because I am evolving and changing. I'm being changed by my Heavenly Father. And as I'm changing and growing, there's certain people in my life that are naturally going to fall off. But it's easier to deal with this transition and these people falling off and these places falling off and these different situations that I'm used to falling away, because I'm recognizing the changes that are taking place in myself. So a lot of times we say, oh, it's the devil doing this, the devil doing that. And it's really just us outgrowing certain people, places, and things. It has nothing to do with the enemy at all. All right, I've already talked longer than I planned on it, so let me go ahead and get out of here. Hope this really hit home for some of you. And again, if you find yourself not relating to this podcast, this episode at all, by all means, please send it to someone to whom you feel may benefit from it. All right. I love you guys as always. Until next time, and Shalom Aleichem.